Welcome to the Comedy Studio Podcast.
The
Only
Only Pod
Podcast. Oh, you got me at the end. We were doing
Fucking got
so
him.
good.
I fucking
and then
got
you
him.
threw me a classic curveball. Welcome to the Comedy Studio Podcast, the Only Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Hatch. Your other host is Eli Levy. Welcome to the show, Eli.
I have been snapping my finger at a lot of people, and I need to stop it. It's a bad habit.
You've been getting into snapping the fingers, huh?
I do this all the time. Whenever somebody says my name, I'm like, and it's probably the worst habit I've ever developed.
That's the worst habit you've ever developed.
Well, I can feel
job.
I can feel gambling developing, but casino's closed, so I can't really fuel that fire right now.
That's true. You were getting into gambling right before the pandemic.
I literally went to the casino. I was like, this is gonna be my thing.
You know, it worked out well for you because my vice is drinking, and of course, the pandemic has only made that much easier to do all the time.
Well, I can't do online gambling, so
You can?
well, I can, but like the real, I think my addiction is like the in casino. It's like
You
a
like the seedy vibe.
Yeah, I like sitting at the table where the other players like get mad at me and move my chips for me because I'm being too slow. That's the best.
So it seems like you're addicted to punishment.
Yeah,
And being scolded.
I like it when they yell at me for not knowing what I want at what my next move is at the blackjack table.
Did you lose money, or what happened last time? Were you up or down last time you left?
My grand total right now is I think just $20 behind.
All right.
Yeah, I got a little bit. I was like 100 behind, and then the last time I got up like $80, so I'm 20 behind now.
Okay.
So it's not bad.
End it.
It's not bad.
No. And you go to that Encore?
Yeah, Encore's the closest one.
That's that big fan. It's losing a lot of money, of course, I hear.
They're not doing
I mean,
great
how
now.
couldn't it? Yeah. I only went excuse me, I only went to Big Casino one time. It was shortly after I graduated high school. I went with my then girlfriend and my then best friend, and I lost $100 in like 20 minutes.
Ugh.
Maybe not 20 minutes, but I lost $100 pretty quickly playing video blackjack, because what they do is they switch the buttons on you. So you get in the groove of hitting one button for hit and one button for stay. And then they switch them up on you, and I wasn't paying attention. And so I had like a 20, and then I'd hit, and of course I would bust all over the place.
I'm busting.
I'm too stupid for gambling, and it's served me relatively well in the 10 years since.
My family at our last reunion, we went for blackjack in the afternoon, which was pretty sweet. Just me and my cousins, because they apparently love going to the casino whenever we're together. And so I finally went with them, and it was pretty good. We got a table to ourselves. Blackjack is the one to play, I think, because it's like a team-based thing. It's the only game out of all of them where it's everybody against the house.
Sure, that's true.
So you kind of like, it's a little more fun because you're not like playing against the other players. You're all just like, all of you win money if you do well.
Sure.
So it's
like
a little more fun,
cross-country
yeah.
Of gambling games.
We're all in this together.
Yeah. Our first of two special guests today. He's the owner and operator of Rick's Fuck Palace LLC. He is 59 years old. Excuse me. And this is the 59th episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
Please welcome the podcast's birthday twin, Mr. Rick Jenkins.
The first time I gambled was at the CYO during the Christmas Bazaar. And I thought, I was like 8, and I'm going like, oh, I'm going to be like James Bond. I'm going to like be this high roller and everything. So I asked my dad for money, and he gave, all right, here's $5.
It's
That's all
very
you're
James
going to get.
Bondian, asking for money from the higher ups.
Yeah, and I just rolled up to the table, and I threw my $5 down on 11, and 19 came up, and I was done for the day and realized gambling just sucked.
And you've never gone back.
Never. The closest I got, I was playing Foxwoods, and it was an afternoon gig. And the comic I was with was like, well, you're here. You got to gamble. So I put a quarter into a slot machine, got 2 quarters back. and was so excited, I decided to stay right there.
That's pretty good.
And then I went into the bathroom, and they had little soaps and shit. So I got like 4 soaps for that 50 cents. I'm like, hey, I'm leaving ahead of the game. I've got
Winner,
soap.
winner.
Wait, you spent your winnings on soap?
I tipped the
Okay.
tipped the bathroom guy 50 cents and took the soap with me.
You guys got to play that game in the bathroom. That one's the best.
Yes, I made a couple bucks there, yeah, but
You
you know,
just give the guy money and he gives you soap.
My favorite thing about Encore is that there's a Dunkin' Donuts on the casino floor.
Oh.
It's the most
I mean-
hilarious place to have a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, it's not. I guess it's not surprising. It's in what is it? It's in Medford, right?
No,
Yeah.
what's it?
Everett.
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 That's right.
Yeah, we can't throw a dead cat without hitting the Dunkin' Donuts in Everett.
Now, isn't that the Encore? Isn't that one of the ones where they can't give you free drinks?
They do. All casinos
do
give you
give-
free.
okay.
Every casino gives you free drinks if you're gambling.
Yeah, yeah. I
Only
thought
if
the-
you're gambling. If you're not,
negotiating.
yeah. No, they just
Yeah, I thought
bring.
the license or something. Yeah.
They just bring it by. You say what you want. They come back. Usually, you can tip them in chips or cash, whatever. But you should always tip.
They want you to get drunk, of course, so that you make
Yeah.
worse and worse decisions with your money.
They want you to focus more, so they give you Adderall and Ritalin. They're like, we want you to really. And they give you a little
love the
They give you
thrill of the
little
sport.
strategy booklets too. They're like,
Yeah.
here's how you beat the game.
The latest studies seem to indicate that what alcohol does is it affects the part of the brain that keeps you from being able to foresee consequences. So it's
Yeah,
not that
that's
it changes
exactly-
the way you think. It's just like, okay, if I do this, I don't see the bad stuff that can happen from it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You just.
And if I can't see it, might as well not be there.
100 on black.
You've been cleaning soaps, Rick, for what? It was probably 100 days now.
105.
105, matching the temp outside. Congratulations.
Or somewhere in there, yeah.
Now, do you get it? When's the next chip you get?
I don't go to actual AA meetings,
Okay.
so there's no chips involved.
So how do you reward yourself?
I have a drink. I have a glass of champagne and toast the
Look at my process.
I will say, does it make it easier that non-alcoholic beer has gotten better now?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I probably shouldn't even be doing that because I guess there is a trace amount. But that's
Yeah.
been that's
world's-
been my
The world's gonna end so soon. You might as well enjoy your 0.05%.
What do you think? O'Doul's is going to step up their game now? Do you think they're like, oh,
Yes.
we should probably make this
O'Doul's is
taste
made by-
good?
O'Doul's is made by Budweiser, and Budweiser is introducing a non-alcoholic beer. So there's going to be Bud non-alcoholic, and that's the
Oh.
reviews have been very good. Janet McNamara has been turning me on to it, and I'm waiting for my first shipment.
Do you think
So
we
it
can
tastes-
get non-alcoholic beer to sponsor this podcast?
I think we
We've
need a couple
tried.
more.
Boy, Janet McNamara went to Athletic Brewery. We
Mhm.
got T-shirts, and we got a rep come up just for us. She is.
Do you have contact info? I might start spamming them.
I check with Janet. I don't think so.
I mean, how great would it be to all of us get free Bud Light non-alcoholic T-shirts, and we wear them as our uniform for this podcast?
Hopefully they'd have those little hats with the 2 beers on either side.
Oh yeah.
A
You can only put non-alcoholic beers in.
a Bud Light non-alcoholic
Sense.
Johnny Carson suit with
I've been
with
very active on the Johnny Carson fan club lately. By the way.
what
And
is
what
what does
content?
activity what does
Like to
activity look
promote
like?
us, or just to like jerk off about how great Johnny Carson is with the rest
Kind
of the
of.
weirdos?
What I've been doing.
Little bit of this,
is
little bit of
because it's all Johnny Carson trivia stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I have all these Johnny Carson suits and stuff. So I have been posing, like I posed in the Johnny Carson pajamas,
You did.
and made sure that this comedy studio logo was in the background.
You posed in the Johnny Carson pajamas. I did steal your picture to use it as a comedy studio post.
Yeah.
And it one of our best posts according to
Yeah.
the likes. People love seeing Rick in his pajamas.
Yeah. So I am. I'm going to be more Instagram once a day with Carson or Letterman or just some of the trivia I have around the house.
And what's the end game?
The end game is to get more people to our website and buy tickets to our show.
Nice.
Is it bad manners to sew a comedy studio patch onto one of those suits? Would that be sacrilege? Would the community be very angry?
Yeah, I would think so
Yeah.
because you've got the Carson label sewn onto it.
Just put our logo right over that.
Yeah, so you're defacing a piece of
Yeah.
art.
Be like a piece of art. sure.
Have you ever
Well,
defaced
speaking
art
of-
before?
Have I defaced art before? I broke a religious icon on accident my
What?
first day of high school.
Wait, what?
I went to Catholic high school, and my very first class was in the nun. We had one nun who taught at our classroom, and my very first class was in her classroom. And I was trying to make a big entrance, and she had like all these like statues and crosses and shit all over the place. I was trying to make a big entrance. She was not in the room. I come in and I swing my backpack off to sit down, all cool like, and I knocked like a statue of the Virgin Mary over.
And it broke?
It broke, and I just swept it behind the cabinet and didn't tell her.
Do you think they didn't find out?
Oh, I think she found out because she and I famously did not get along for all 4 years of high school. Her name was Sister Sanchez. She and I just were not meant to be.
What about the Virgin Mary? Are you and the Virgin Mary cool now?
Oh, we're cool. We're very cool.
She's not a virgin anymore.
Anymore.
I've defaced art before.
Yeah, what'd you do?
When I was like 10, my family took a trip to Seattle, and we went to this like outdoor museum, or like a museum that had like an indoor-outdoor part to it, and the outdoor part had this huge, like, steel iron statue, like shaped like a boat, and there was a big sign next to it that said "Do not put feet on the art," and next to that sign were literally a million footprints. So I was like, of course I'm going to put my foot on this.
And what happened?
Then a bicycle police officer rolled on up to us and said, "Hey, did you just put your foot on that?" And I said, "No." And then he said, "I saw you do it." And then I said, "I didn't do that." And my parents did not believe me.
Sounds like a snotty little kid.
Oh yeah, I was a little shit.
I'd have thrown you in the slammer, teach you a lesson. Bail you out when we're going home.
My plan was
In art jail.
to deny it until like they sat us down and showed the tape of it, which they didn't have to do. No,
Okay.
my parents did not take my side on that.
Those Seattle cops sound like pushovers. That's all I'm gonna say. Stayed in the feds.
I was like, the sign didn't seem to be doing a whole lot of good.
No, and it's birthplace of grunge, breaking the rules, computers. You ever deface art, Rick? Before we move on,
I don't think so.
good for you.
Not on purpose.
Eli, you mentioned sponsoring podcasts, and what an excellent segue that would have been if I capitalized on it 5 minutes ago when you said it. To talk about our new topic, which is the ad that we are running on some podcasts to try to hopefully get some eyeballs on our new comedy studio, virtually the same shows.
Yay.
The first ad has dropped today. It's out there in the world. If you go to the iTunes store and subscribe to Full Release with Samantha B, you'll be able to hear it. Or you can just listen to this podcast, and I'll play it right now. So this is the first of two ads. This is actually the second of two ads. I'm only going to play this one. We had a 20-second ad and a 60-second ad. This is the 60-second.
I have not heard this.
Even though I emailed it to you yesterday.
I was waiting to make a bigger deal of it.
All right, so let's see if I can make this work here. Oh, wait, hang on. This is the wrong one. What a professional podcast this is. Someone really ought to be subscribed to this one. Oh, gosh. Well, nope, can't do it. Sorry, guys. I have to download something to be able to play it. So here's what I'll do. I'll drop it into the actual podcast. Stop share. I will drop the audio into the actual podcast.
So Eli and I should just be like, wow, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm also realizing that I was not recording Zoom the whole time. However, you three were recording your audio. So before our third special guest comes in, I am going to
There's only two of us.
I was talking to me as well.
Okay.
I always dread these podcasts as if, they're such a big deal. And then I do shit like forget to press record on Zoom and not download whatever audio driver I need to play as an audio clip.
I'm always surprised by how big a deal stuff is. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she listens to everyone very closely. I'm like, I didn't realize anyone was listening. Or Eli's mom. We had Kai Krebs on the show last weekend, and his mom listens to his podcast, and his podcast is all about gay dating.
Nice.
Yeah, so he says she finds out more about him through the podcast than she does talking to him.
Yeah, my dad had a similar experience with me. He said I should have just put a microphone in front of your face growing up, so I'd learn about you.
That's the same thing that my mom says.
It's hard. Look, it's a lot easier to say this shit into a mic where you can assume no one's really going to hear it than it is to say it face to face to your parents. It's just simple physics.
Yeah, than
Which
talking
also
to my
brings up
mother.
One of the things I hate about open mics, about bringer shows, when people bring their family or their friends or whatever. To me, comedy is like where you find your independence. I mean, I never rebelled. I just separated myself enough that I developed a personality on stage, and that became, the comedy club me became me. I think you always need that break from, your family and your parents to become your own person.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan made that point too. He was like, you
Oh.
should never perform comedy for your friends or family. It's for it's meant for strangers.
Yeah.
Such a gatekeeper.
Joe did not have many friends and family here, but
Hey, Joe Rogan's friends and family, you are welcome to this podcast, and you will become my friends and family.
And then
Yeah,
I'll
Joe
never
was an
perform stand-up
incredible
comedy
loner.
for you.
Joe Rogan, a loner? You don't say.
yeah.
What couldn't be his personality?
He was just, he's always been focused and driven. I mean, when he was an open micer, and he wasn't an open micer for long, but when he first had seen, he was, obsessed with martial arts and fighting.
Oh yeah, he's a
And-
tournament-rated fighter.
Yeah, to us, that was like just the most weird, random thing ever. He was always like really disciplined and focused.
And now every other comic loves wrestling.
Well, like, we have a bunch of jiu-jitsu comics, like Tim McIntyre does jiu-jitsu, Ryan Shea does jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, but Tim got into it after comedy.
that's true.
Did Tim retire from comedy?
No, I mean, he was doing comedy and then. took
No,
up
comedy's
jiu-jitsu.
just dead right now.
I see. That's true. I really think it is.
Oh, except online where we're
Except online, we're the final frontier.
where we are doing it.
So we are, yes. If you're listening to the podcast by now, you have heard the clip of the ad that I dropped in post, and Eli and Rick loved it. For me, I got a real kick out of hearing Samantha Bee talk about the Comedy Studio. I'm a fan, and sure, she was paid to do it, but it was still cool.
I can't wait to hear in post what she said.
Yeah.
I am notoriously against. I don't like the idea of advertising and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the need for it,
Yes.
but boy, the fact that we're able to support and get advertising on a show we really like and respect, and
Mhm.
sort of reflects our feeling about comedy. I'm very excited about that. That's not just a big ad buy for Tide detergent or something. It's I think there's a good connection there.
It has been like pulling teeth for years. I mean, for the 3 years I've been involved in this wild thing we call the Comedy Studio. And for the 2 years that I've really had any say in the decisions, it has been like pulling teeth to get you to acquiesce to advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference was that we could do it in a comedy realm for you. I guess you already said that, and I'm just giving time.
Well, yeah, to have that was nice. It was because basically, I feel like, hey, if you do a good enough job, people will eventually find out. The difference with this was we don't really have 10, 15 years
Mhm.
to let it slowly develop through word of mouth.
Well, also for it
So-
to develop through word of mouth, especially like right now, you need people coming into our club to like see the shows and then tell people about it. But since we can't do that, then what are we
Right.
gonna?
So
Then what are we
when
gonna do?
When we started, we didn't need people coming in. So it was like, why advertise? We'd rather do what we want to do and not have it affected at all, because we'll break. If we get 4 people, that's $4 more than we had before. Now, we need a bunch of people in to be able to keep doing what we want to do.
Yeah. Bills.
What's next, advertising wise, Rick? We gonna start putting your butt on some city buses? Just a picture of Rick's butt that says "Come to our website."
Just
I'm
a
just gonna
pic.
ride the city buses and talk to people
Talk
as
to
they get on the
people.
bus.
That'd be
Hey,
funny.
what you reading there?
Sidle right up next to them.
We should
You
pay
know these
comics
things
to
are hoax,
dress.
right?
We should pay comics to dress up in Johnny Carson suits and ride public transportation and only talk about the club while they're on the train.
I've got extra suits.
Mark Gallagher. We'll pay Sam Ike. We'll pay literally any.
Should we talk about how great?
Let's
last
talk
week's
about the
show was?
last show. Yeah, set it
Oh
up,
my
Rick.
goodness!
Yeah, tell me about it.
There was just so much fun. Mark Gallagher brought Puppet Rick.
So let's see. So
And-
it was. So we had. Let's establish the lineup first.
Okay,
Casey Crawford, calling
in
from his
Iowa, called
car
in
in
from Iowa,
very
Mhm.
cool. Then we had Kai Krebs from Austin, Texas.
called in from Texas.
So far, completely different areas than Boston. What a magical thing the internet.
Austin, Boston. Whoa.
Austin and Boston.
What the fuck?
We had Corey Rodriguez, fresh off of the Mike Huckabee.
All right,
Yuck
I
Hour.
need more context on this. What?
So you know how Mike Huckabee, for the last couple of years has been trying to be like a Twitter comedian.
No.
Oh, he's been trying to. Do you know about this, Rick? You've seen his
yeah.
notoriously lame, shitty jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess Mike Huckabee has decided that his second run is to become a comedy gatekeeper or something, and so
he's gonna
he
be the
has.
Funny conservative.
Yes, and boy is he.
The Mike Huckabee experience.
He's awful. He's the worst, and his comedy's bad. And I feel comfortable saying that because my comedy's bad too. And you know it when you know it. But so Corey Rodriguez was performing on a Mike Huckabee comedy show that I think Sean Hannity had called into.
Yeah.
And then he
And then he saw Corey. He was like, "Oh God!"
then he came right around and did an extremely filthy set on our show.
Well, and that show was also recorded and broadcast on the Christian Broadcast Network. The
CBC.
Christian Broadcast Network, and was airing while Corey was on our show. So that was just so cool. He had just flown in from doing this thing for Mike Huckabee with Hannity and all these conservative people, and then came on our show and talked about sucking toes. While in the other room, he was on Christian television.
Did it bother you? His toe stuff?
No,
Just being.
I mean, maybe because I've seen him so much that it didn't catch me by surprise. I was kind of expecting it to be truthful.
Danny, did it perturb you that he is into feet?
No, not at all. I just loved the juxtaposition of
Oh yeah.
he's doing the Christian show in one area, and then on our show he's getting very graphic about sucking on toes.
He had to hold it in. He had to repress
Hey,
it.
he's a Renaissance man.
Yeah, in 2 different rooms. So that
is totally good. Then we had what? I don't get it. Then we had Mark Gallagher, who they were all good sets, but I think Mark had the set of the night.
Mark, I love that kid.
He had put together a whole audio-visual presentation for us where he played our beloved Vice President Michael Pence, a very faithful portrayal as well. And then he broke out Puppet Rick Jenkins at the end, his classic. I don't know, his new classic bit.
Yeah, and comedian Lisa Lang was also there to help a little bit. So
That's right. Karen Pence. And then capping it off, calling in from China, we had Joe Wong returning to the studio.
Oh, so he's in China right now.
He's in China.
Yeah.
Wow.
He called from China. He got up at 7 a.m. to call into our show.
Which, wow.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool because he flew to the U.S. about 4 months ago for pilot season. And he's here. He's trying to sell a show, and everybody is saying, "Oh, don't bring that Chinese disease here." And now he flows back to China. Now China's got their stuff together. Everything's open. It's just people wear masks. And now everyone in China is saying to Joe, "Hey, don't bring that American disease here. We already got over it."
It's a quarantine for 2 weeks, right? In a hotel.
Yeah.
And I think he'd made that his backdrop. Was the river that he stared at every second of every day.
Yeah. And we should also mention Joe has a book out called Not This Shit Again about anti-Asian sentiment in the U.S.
Where can people find that book?
So much from that. I had no idea.
It's on Amazon. You can get that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Amazon.com, everybody.
Yeah, it's an ebook.
It was a great show. I think they all are. I haven't seen every single one of them, but the ones I've seen, I always come away very impressed, and maybe I'm biased, but I also come away relieved that they were so good, and this one was no exception. It was just, I love the variety I love the different voices. were there only men on that show? Yes. So maybe variety is not the best way thing to say.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but it was
Lisa
still a
slipped in there,
different.
but-
It was different styles. It was different, levels of experience. Everyone was great. It was a
got me
fun
very
time.
excited again.
It got you excited again. Were you flagging, Rick? Were you getting a little bit sad?
No, I was having a little bit of an issue just trying to get used to doing a live show as opposed to an online show,
Mm-hmm.
and just getting my head around, okay, what's different? What's the same? How do I do it? And it felt like this week everything kind of came together, and I've got a real sense of like, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to doing another one.
So where are you at now?
That's what I said. Now I feel like, oh wow, I can't wait till Friday when we get to do it again.
Yeah, we got 3 this week.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about that. We're expanding. It's big news for us. We're doing 3 of these motherfuckers per week now.
Well,
this
not
is the
just that.
first
We're doing shows every day of the week
That's
now,
true,
except
we are.
Mondays. We're back to our normal schedule pretty much.
adding new
Do we have
shows
Monday?
up the wazoo. Not Monday.
No,
Monday's
nothing
the
on
day
Monday.
best.
We weren't doing anything on Monday before anyway.
Yeah.
It's karaoke.
Should we bring that back? You?
No, the bane of my existence. Yep. So let's run over the schedule this week.
All right.
Tuesday, today, right now, this thing. You're listening to it. You're here. You made it. At 8 p.m., Ferris and Friends, episode 2 with the Comedy Studio. It's Kathy Ferris and Ellen Sugarman's show. It's a fun time for fun ladies and gals and guys and all sorts of people who identify as whatever they would like to. Wednesday, Tales from the Inside with Angela Sawyer, a storytelling show. What is storytelling? Some may say it's the grandfather of podcasting. So if you if you love this
Who
shit,
said that?
I did just now,
Okay.
and I added it to the Wikipedia page for podcasting.
Okay.
That's Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Thursdays is a tricky day because we have different options on different days, don't we, Eli?
So every other Thursday, so next Thursday we're coming back is Nikki Luparelli's BoobTube, which is a virtual variety show. Nikki Luparelli hosts 3 live comedians on Zoom, and then we also have a bunch of clips and sketches that other comics have made and sent in to us that we play in between. It's really fun. And then every Thursday at 10:30 p.m. we also now have Wicked Good Comedy, which is Ellen Sugarman's stand-up show from San Diego.
A new show.
Mm-hmm.
Live from San Diego, another place that isn't Boston or Austin or Iowa or China.
And it doesn't rhyme, so that's...
No, it doesn't.
I guess that's cool.
Unfortunately. And then this Friday, we've got virtually the same with Will Abels. Abels or Abellas?
Abels.
Okay, Abels. By the way, maybe we can bring this up with him. This guy, this Will Abels, he always goes live on Instagram around midnight EST, which must be like 9 p.m. PST. But I always get a notification on my phone that this Will Abels guy is going live. And one of these days, I'm going to see what it's all about. But he will be on our show this Friday. We've also got Dhaya Lakshminarayanan on, who's going to be our guest on the podcast any minute now, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
Gary Peterson, Chris Post, and everyone's favorite toe sucker. He's back for more. Get out your toenails, baby. Corey Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So that's this Friday. On Saturday, we'll have my pal Mike Kaplan, who always asks me for podcasting advice, but will not have me on his new podcast.
Is that your advice, is to put you on his new podcast?
It always is. You know what this could need is a little bit of Danny. Then we've got Mike Kaplan, Christy Kiel-Basinski, Nikki Luparelli of the BoobTube, Zach Moss, and John Ozale, another studio alumni.
Dr. John
Alumnus.
Ozale.
Dr. John Ozale, a neuroscientist. He fed cocaine to rats. Maybe he'll talk about it.
It's kind of sad, though, because he was supposed to record his album with us in April.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was in the works. We had a lot of good stuff in the works before the fucking world ended. You guys remember when it was going to be like, okay, everyone go home for 2 weeks, and then we'll come back and do shows again?
Take a little time out. Yeah.
I think I said that last week, too, but it always... it just...
This week, last week, what's the difference anymore?
And then Sunday, 8:23, we've got Alyssa Alduki, Kathy Ferris, host of Ferris and Friends, Sam Ike, a.k.a. Black Rick Jenkins, Andrew Mayer, and Kelly McFarland. Black Rick Jenkins was a character you played on.
Oh, I'll put up that picture. I was going through photos. I've got a picture of I gave Sam one of my Johnny Carson suits, like one of the suits I have double
Yeah.
of. So I wore one and Sam wore the other.
That was during his comic in residency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hey, you can get tickets at our website. Please do, because this is how we stay open.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
You know how I've been pushing it lately is I think I'm going to start pushing it as if you want to support a local business, get through this, buy a ticket. That's how you can support the comedy studio in getting through this crisis.
I say two things. I first say support live comedy, and then I also say support my gambling addiction.
Yes. And
Your
buy me a
gambling
beer.
addiction is $100 at Encore. It's not like you're selling your car for scratch tickets.
I'm just saying, a little bit more here, the little more I can gamble.
All right, folks. Our second guest has arrived. Shall we
Yay.
admit her? She's in the waiting room.
I'm having second thoughts.
Yes.
Folks, you saw her on our last episode, or our first episode of Virtually the Same, and you'll see her this Friday. Please welcome to the show, Dhaya Lakshminarayanan. Welcome, Dhaya.
Hey, Dhaya.
Hello, can you
Yay.
hear and see me okay?
Yes.
We can.
You got a whole
Awesome.
fancy setup.
What a couch.
Awesome job with my last name, by the way. Thank you for thinking this is fancy. These are like pillows from my home country / Pier 1 imports. So,
I-
they're just
well,
You're in
really
the
follow
business.
you. I follow you. You've set up a lighting and camera, and you got the whole apartment set up like a studio now.
Well, yeah. So, Rick, let me turn this around and show you. Do you want to see the behind the scenes?
Yes.
Sure, it's a podcast, so we won't all be able to. But
So we'll
Okay, so-
describe it. It's a house. Oh my gosh. and
Oh,
it's
there's a
curtain, it's
green screen?
You
I
can
assume
put
that-
anything back there.
I assume that's
Yeah,
a mic
there's
stand.
lighting,
Oh,
there's
lighting
The
stand.
weather.
So sometimes I just do it in front of my couch, and sometimes if I am required, I use the green screen for things, especially if I need to stand up. And then I have a lav mic. I have this mic. I
Hey.
have so much equipment, and just doing what we're doing now.
Did you
are
own
working.
any of this before the pandemic, or is this all like post March equipment?
So yeah, that's a good question. So all I owned was my laptop. I bought this. This is an Ethernet cable.
I just got one of those today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so to describe to the listeners, it's like literally like a blue, old school. When is this from? Like the 90s?
This is you'd see this in like the Jurassic Park control room.
Yeah. It has tubes
So-
in it.
Everyone-
I bought that, and then I realized I can't plug it into my Mac. It doesn't know how to connect.
Ah.
So then I purchased a dongle,
Yep.
like a dongle that goes
Uh-huh.
between your Ethernet cable and your Mac.
Oh.
And I host. I'm the Bethany equivalent of San Francisco because I host the
Hmm.
Moth in Northern California.
Mhm.
So through the people that I know at the Moth, they were like, "Well, we're not doing live shows. Do you want to borrow some of our audio equipment?" So I
Oh,
borrowed
nice.
the lav mic and something called an icicle that you plug into that, and then I borrowed this mic. So some of it is borrowed. Some of it is not blue; it's green. So I am married to this virtual comedy world.
So you're
And-
set.
Oh.
What's that?
You're set. You're in it for the long haul, which is looking more and more like that. It will be the long haul.
Yeah, and I've recorded a couple of pilots. So for one of the pilots, they sent me the green screen because they wanted all of our backgrounds to kind of be, consistent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the background was colorful, and they put our name and our Venmo handle. And another pilot that I filmed, they sent me very expensive equipment to my apartment, and I learned how to set it all up. And I took a union job, is what I did, and then I had to return it. So that's all of the equipment that is living and not living, and temporary and permanent. So
Wow. Okay, so Danny, I'm gonna need a doggle
Yes.
and
A dog. We're gonna get you a doggle.
And then you're set.
hey, can we do that, Eli? Can we send everybody the something so that they can put the comedy studio stage backdrop as their green screen?
Yeah,
yeah.
I can.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
It'll
I'll do it next show. Just send me the graphics, and I'll stand in front of the green screen, and it'll say Comedy Studio on it. I would love
just so
that.
you know what that'll look like, because that's also what the backdrop of the actual show is. That'll look like the show within the show within the show within the show.
Oh,
Ooh,
that sounds
Hall of
cool.
Mirrors.
Yeah, but
So
I
do you
can
like
send that.
this- Do you like this new way of doing comedy, Dhaya? Because I don't mind it, to be honest.
I think I'm not doing outdoor shows yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have anything to compare it to except for the before times.
Right.
And of course, I mean, I'm saying this genuinely, and I'm kind of like very emo right now. I mean, I love the Comedy Studio and I miss it so much. I miss you guys so much. Rick, like everything you do for comics, how you make us feel when we get there. Nothing can replace that. Nothing can replace that Keurig machine where I'm like, hey, can I get some coffee, man? I mean, it just doesn't feel the same emotionally for me. And even though we're connecting now, it's just different. So if I compare it to the before times, I'm going to be sad.
Sure.
But if I say this is what we're working with, let's make the best of it, then I'm okay.
It seems like it's getting, people are getting more and more used to it. They're sending out fancy equipment. They're getting better about coordinating backdrops. It's an impressive,
That's where my feeling with what we're going through right now is I've made that switch from, it's not live to, wow, doing these weekend shows, this is a really fun show of itself.
Yeah.
And to not make that comparison, to just say, wow, I'm looking forward to doing this.
Don't look
it's
back.
It's not like, the others is going to go away. It's just, this is a really cool new project to do.
Yeah.
How long do you think it's going to last? We looking at like next summer, we can maybe do some indoor shows again? I like to ask all the guests.
Well, so here's what I think is going to happen. There are outdoor shows happening in California, in New York. Are there outdoor shows in Massachusetts? Is that allowed?
There are.
They're starting to crop up. Yeah. Kind of. That's true. They keep pushing back the phases.
Yeah, you're not allowed more than 50 people together. So Giggles is doing a show, but other than that, it's almost all backyard open mic stuff.
Well, there's that. There's also some like beer garden shows, just some comic run stuff. Not Most clubs aren't doing outdoor shows, but
no, it's
there's like that new Starlight Theater that outdoor space that opened up.
It's true. In Central Square, they've installed a new outdoor amphitheater farmers market that Improv Boston is going to be running some shows at.
But they're only doing like 2 a month because it's a community center deal.
Yeah,
so very nascent.
I think that outdoor shows, remember back in the day, if you tell a comic to do an outdoor show, we'd all be like, ugh, why would I ever do something like that?
Still the worst shows I've ever done were all outside.
Exactly. And so now people are like, please book me on your outdoor show.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be some people who do outdoor shows, and Californians are going to be able to do that like almost year round.
That's true, yeah.
On the East Coast, there's going to be 2 seasons, Zoom season and outdoor show season.
Outdoor season isn't going to last much longer.
No.
Yeah, and so for me personally, I'm not doing outdoor shows yet. So the Zoom shows, I will keep doing them until the audiences get tired of it and say, I don't want this anymore. It'll depend on the demand. But in terms of how long it's going to be until we can gather, there are so many factors. There's, it's really scientifically, how do we figure out a vaccine? A third of Americans won't do the vaccine. They've already said, they're I'm not interested. And no judgment on that. It's just some people won't do it. And then second, the antibody tests are all over the place in terms of false positives and false negatives. So we can't really, make that claim. At some point, people are going to feel like their livelihoods depend on it. Again, no judgment, because this is an economic crisis as well as a health crisis. So some people will do indoor shows, and they may, do them at their own health risk. And it's because people are suffering and they need to feed themselves and get health insurance and whatnot. So I don't want people to be forced into doing that, but it might happen sooner than we're ready for, I think.
Yeah, the entire restaurant industry is in that position. I'm actually glad that the government in Massachusetts is so strict that we simply legally can't. We can't even think about it. So I don't have to make that. Yeah, so we don't have to make that decision. But
it also hurts us.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to be doing once clubs are allowed and all that stuff? You think you're going to keep doing internet shows like, Saturday at the Stand Up New York and then Saturday at 11 o'clock on Zoom?
If this is a booking request, yes, Rick. I will send you my avails through 2022. Some people have said that this is actually good because, I mean, I'm not trying to even be woke here, but people who couldn't access shows because they're people with disabilities and like the club wouldn't be able to be ADA accessible. Now there's a whole demographic, people who couldn't pay for childcare, people who parking was an issue and they didn't want to pay $25 to park for an hour, or people who had to get up really early in the morning. They couldn't stay for a headline or to wrap up an hour and a half. There's a new kind of demographic coming into stand-up because these costs are not associated anymore. So I would love to keep doing that if it means more people in comedy. But just selfishly, I really just miss the camaraderie of the green room. I miss being able to see comics in person. And I mean, not in a creepy way at all. Like I miss being able to hug comics, and so that to me, plus the kind of connection with the audience, I would want to do that. But I also think that when these shows start happening, there's going to be a part of America that just doesn't feel comfortable. So it's like laughter might be kind of throttled because people are like, can I laugh? If I laugh, is this airborne?
Oh, right. Sure. The droplets.
And whenever there's something in your head that's not allowing you to laugh, like comics usually address it, but this is like, oh, I know you're not laughing because you could kill someone with this aerosolized laugh. It just, people are going to be in their heads and it's going to be hard. So we might be doing this until audiences feel comfortable and not just the science.
Yeah, I think another part of the demographic I want to mention that we're getting, because I got it on the show last week, was that there was a couple that had a baby, so they wanted to put the baby down, not have to pay for childcare, and they wanted to have a couple drinks during the show and not worry about driving drunk.
Yeah.
So you're also saving on the Uber or your car or taking a chance or something. So yeah, I think there's a whole group of people that, doesn't want to deal with the, a lot of the difficulties of going out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're going to look at, once we are open, can we stream the show just as is and sell that? Can we have Dhaya call in from New York and do a 5-minute set within the show?
Yeah.
I mean, there's, it really opens up a lot of possibilities that we weren't forced to think about before.
Yeah, anything that makes comedy more accessible and more people to get involved, I love it. And I also think, I mean, this is not true of Rick. This is true of unnamed comedy club bookers who have a certain type of person that they will book and they won't give other people an opportunity. And some of those people are really struggling because the comics with our own followings and an Ethernet cable and good lighting, we can just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you were a good friend to comedians remember that, and we're doing shows with clubs that have always been supported. And if you weren't a good friend, then we're just gonna do these shows for our demo, and we don't need the gatekeeper who was mean. So I think it also, I mean, again, it's a little woo-woo, but right now with the market collapsing, people having unemployment cut, not knowing what their futures are, just kindness is the new currency. So if you can't be nice to people right now, then when things reopen, people are going to remember that too. So I think the way that comedy is working right now, it's incentivizing people to work together and be nice.
You have a list of people in your head of like, oh, that not gonna go back to that club, or oh, I can't wait until they're struggling.
Dhaya's list.
No, I actually don't wish the struggle on any of the clubs because a lot of the servers are my friends.
Yeah.
And when the servers have heard your jokes like 20,000 times and they're still laughing, that means they're really your friend. They want you to be want you to be successful. So I don't wish harm on them because it's affecting like my friends in the industry. Yeah. But some of those people are learning that, be nice to these people who now have followings and an Ethernet cable and lighting and can do this from their home, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, you never know who's going to like actually succeed. So you should really be nice to everybody, because you're gonna be like, oh, that person that I never thought was gonna make it, and I told them never would, is now way more successful than I am, and I look like
Well, you
a
know,
fool.
and part of it is also that you don't, being comics and being independent contractors, we're not always as open. We don't need to deal with the conflict. We can just say, oh, don't worry about it. We were mentioning Joe Wong. He's been to my wedding. He's been, you know, it's a good friend, really, really fairly close. And I just read his book where he talked about a lot of the racist crap he's had to go through in comedy clubs. And I spent the whole book on like, wait, was that me? Did I do that? Was that you know, what was there? So there's also some of that of, I think some of the comics, some of the comedy club owners on your list are probably thinking, oh, well, you know, she likes me. She's you know, she's fine. And you're going like, really? I'm middling for that person
Right.
because he's a loud white guy? Shit.
Right. Right. So I think that the point is be nice to Asians because we know how to use the internet. So Rick, you were on the front lines of
I
that.
am so old. I remember when you weren't considered Asian.
Really first through the wall, Rick.
We did a Asian cultural development benefit back in the day with Ali Wong and Joe Wong, and a whole bunch of really terrific comics. And we had Alingan Mitra on the
nice.
show.
Yeah.
And
he's great.
Alingan came up and he opened with, "If you don't think I belong on the show, you're racist fucks because India is in Asia."
Yeah.
And and it was all like older Asian women, you know, Asian grandmas going like, "Whoa, why is he here?"
What the
You know,
fuck?
a couple of things. I think that show should have been called Two Wongs Don't Make a Right.
See, you could call it that. I can't.
But I also think that's interesting because Asian people do struggle with being like, what do we have in common? Because some of us have dark skin, some of us, our eye shape is different, some of us have curly hair, some of us have straight hair. Like, what makes Asia and Asians have things in common? And I found it. It's rice. Rice is the thing that we all have in common.
I love rice.
One of the jokes he doesn't do anymore because I guess it could be taken as racist. I always love Joe Wong. Joe Wong went to Rice
Racist.
University. He actually, this is true. For college, he went to Rice University, and he says, "I got in on the mascot program."
Wow.
And he doesn't do that joke. I was like, "Joe, you should do that joke. It's great." He's like, "No, I think it's counterproductive."
He's so funny and
Yeah.
nice.
Mm-hmm. You're in San Francisco, right, Dhaya?
Yes.
How's San Francisco doing in general with
Oh
the
my
lockdown
gosh.
and the
So
reopening?
I was texting Eli this. So what has happened? I really feel like I'm calling you from a developing country right now.
okay.
So a couple of days
San
ago,
Francisco.
we had this heat wave,
Mm.
and people in San Francisco don't usually have air conditioning because it's not like LA,
Mhm.
and it's also not. I mean, in Boston and Cambridge and Somerville, people don't have central air conditioning either, right? Because there's only 3 or 4, maybe 5 really hot days, and you don't
Mhm.
need that. But San Franciscans, it doesn't usually get above 70 degrees or 71 degrees, so it's not needed. So we had this massive heat wave. Everyone had their windows open. It was super hot. Everyone's working from home. And then in the middle of the night, what occurred was we had howling wind. So there was howling wind happening. And so then I shut all my windows. And then there's something called heat lightning that occurred, which was like weird, like things. And so in my half awakened state, I'm like, are they doing surveillance on me? Because there's all this lighting happening. And then I went to bed, and then there was thunder and lightning. And then now supposedly there's something called fire tornadoes about to happen in California.
Oh my God.
Are you
Also,
sure you're not
we
in
found
Narnia?
The first case of bubonic plague in Northern
Oh,
California
Jesus.
in several years. And then today we were supposed to have rolling blackouts because we're using too much power. So California is, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was going to ask about that. Are you doing rolling blackouts? Are they like let you know? Oh, you're not going to have electricity on Thursday.
They told us that today and tomorrow we would possibly be subjected to rolling blackouts. So that's why I was texting, and I'm like, if my router goes down, if my lighting goes down, I might have to do this by telephone, like old school cell phone. But so far I have power, so we'll see. But they let us know that it could happen. So in the midst of all of this, we are also dealing with natural disaster
Ugh.
and potential power failures.
It's like the last act of that Hercules movie, the Disney movie, if you remember.
Yeah,
where
it sounds like you're in Lord of the Rings right now. Just
Yeah.
fire,
Well, I hope-
tornadoes, angry lightning.
Please stay safe. That sounds very upsetting. I would hate to be in your position right now.
I'm just thinking that the Nazgul is like plus the cabinet, and they're coming in on these horses and
Yep.
taking away my civil liberties.
Riding in on wyverns.
You are. Thank you for bringing up the Nazgul. I read that you're a self-professed nerd and that you love
Yes!
big franchises. You love Star Wars and Star Trek. I gotta ask, Star Wars or Star Trek? Which one takes the top slot in your mind?
Oh my goodness! Don't make me
Stuffy,
choose
yes.
between my two children. Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I talk about this sometimes. So Star Wars, I feel, is has become more relevant to the next generation because the way that they've kept coming out with stuff and rebooting and that type of thing. So I feel like it's more in the collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But with Star Trek, I feel like a lot has dropped out, and Picard is trying to come back and everything. But I am really partial to the old school Star Treks, and I love to mention this any chance I get. I mean, the old school Star Trek, the first generation with Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, first interracial kiss on television, and Nichelle Nichols wanted to leave the show, and so at one point she was really struggling with that, and she took a meeting with someone. And she walked into the room, and it was Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King was like, Coretta and I are big fans, which is amazing. And then she said, I had no idea. And he said, yeah, we let our kids watch it because seeing you're not a mammy character. You're not, a maid. You're not, one of these, casting related things that is putting us in a slot. You're a scientist. You're a nerd. You're a black woman who's doing nerdy, sciencey things. I mean, he didn't say nerd. I'm putting nerd.
You're a nerd.
But,
Modern vernacular.
Yeah. He said it in his own beautiful way. But she basically said, well, I want to be marching like you and John Lewis are doing. And he was like, we got people marching. We need you on the show. Yeah. I don't know why he spoke like Larry David right then, but this is my interpretation.
Your role is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
We'll do the walking.
She decides to stay on the show. She does great. She leaves. NASA hires her to recruit for NASA.
Wow.
She ends up recruiting the first black astronaut, then Ron McNair, the second black astronaut, Sally Ride, the first woman astronaut, and then Whoopi Goldberg, growing up, sees that character, and then when Next Generation happened, begs Gene Roddenberry to put her on the show, and he said, we don't have stars on this show. Look at who we have. Look at this cast. No one's ever heard of them. It's like a Wednesday at the Comedy Studio. No one knows. And Gene Roddenberry's like, we just are making this show with just regular folks. And she said, I'll do anything. And he's like, do you want to be a bartender? And she's like, sure. And that's how the Guinan character came about, because she was so inspired seeing another black woman in this nerdy role.
I had no idea of the depth of the people she touched. Wow.
Let me ask you this.
So I have a personal feeling about Nichelle Nichols, and I love her, and she's amazing. And so that's when I talk about representation matters, it matters in ways that you may not even realize for a whole generation.
So would you say, I haven't seen any Star Trek, but I'm actually kind of interested in watching the Next Generation, the Picard one. Do I need to watch the original for context for the Next Generation?
I don't think so. I think they're accessible and you can just jump in whenever. And right now there's so much content out there. It might inspire you to go back, but I don't think you have to do it. A nerd might say, you don't have to do it in series. You can do it in parallel.
Eli, just watch the J.J. Abrams movies. That's all you need.
That's all I've seen so far.
Yeah, you could do that too. I mean, no hate.
I like them a lot. I think they're really fun.
Yeah.
But that's not all you need. Next Generation is good too.
Yeah.
How enlightening. I was just hoping to get a simple Star Wars or Star Trek answer, and you took us down this really fascinating path.
I'm sorry. I
No,
can't
don't be.
choose.
It's great. Let's see if we can recreate the magic. DC or Marvel, go.
Oh, you know what? I don't have like a long-winded story about that, but I do want to say that I'm excited about looking back on some of these superheroes and being like, what were they exactly doing? Like, Thing is basically a brick wall with underwear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does he do? And he has a girlfriend, and that always surprised me because I'm like, what did he do to, like,
How's
how
that
did
work?
he do it? And so sometimes when I'm performing in a comedy club, I'm like, what is Thing behind me? Like, what is this? So some of the powers that they have are very questionable and very strange. And I wonder in a matchup if Kool-Aid Man would just walk through Thing.
His one
or
weakness.
if it would be evenly matched. I don't know.
The Kool-Aid Man. My one fear.
Rock
Yeah.
versus scissors.
And what does Thing do during COVID? He's just got to stay inside all day.
Yeah, he can't work at the Comedy Cellar
He's
anymore.
got to find a mask that fits over that giant mouth of his.
I
Can't imagine him
know.
on Match.com.
He sells his image as a Zoom background.
Yes,
Yeah, his
yes.
chest. He's on OnlyFans. He just takes a picture of his chest.
Yep.
It's an
Think he's a
OnlyFans where he
good
just has
baby.
people smash stuff against his body.
I did see this about you too, Dhaya. I wanted to get into. You taught negotiations to MBA students at MIT. What does that mean, negotiations exactly?
So there's a nerdy way of approaching how
Okay.
to negotiate. So a lot of people think like you throw out a number and then I throw out a number and then we split it. And that's one way of doing it. But another way of doing it, there's like a really good old school analogy. There were two siblings and they both needed a full orange to make this recipe. And I don't know what the recipe is, but they both needed the full orange and there was only one orange left in the house and they were fighting over it. And normally, like in normal kind of negotiation, the way we think about it, we would just split it and they would make half of the recipe, right? But then they started talking and one sibling needed the rind or the zest of it for their recipe, and the other one needed the juice for their recipe. So they were both able to get what they wanted in the negotiation. They just had to have a conversation of what their interests were. So when we think about how to negotiate with people, we often think about what is in the best interest of the different parties. How do we optimize so people are getting what they want and not leaving value on the table? So if they had just split the orange, fine, but they would have half the amount of whatever recipe they were making. But this way we maximized value for both parties. So there's a lot of things like that we don't think about because we just think about like, well, I kind of think my background looks like that. Like I'm going to say, don't walk away. I give you a good price. Like that's what this looks like. So we kind of are like thinking about that old school way of thinking like, let's haggle over the price rather than how do we make all the parties feel like they're getting something.
Yeah, and winner loser.
So have you been able to translate that kind of stuff to your comedy career, like negotiating with clubs or bookers?
Well, the margins are so different in comedy clubs. It's hard to really negotiate because, I mean, honestly, it's pretty transparent what is happening unless you're doing a door deal and then it's up to you. But I think where it's been really interesting is with things like private gigs, with corporate gigs, because there's this sense among comics sometimes like, oh, it's a corporate gig and they're paying me, so I should just say yes. And because we don't have a union to say this is what is a fair price, then sometimes people just say, okay, I'll just take whatever. So I think where it really matters is when you're approached by someone who's like, oh, we want you to do this gig. And again, it's not just about price. It's like, they're asking me to do an hour on Zoom. I don't think so. You don't really want that. That's not in your best interest or in mine. Second, you're going to mute all the participants. Well, then there's not going to be laughter. So do you want to do that? Or So it's basically you can negotiate by explaining what's in their best interest and say, I want to make your show optimal. So let's work on that together. And you don't have to take the offer that they throw out. You can ask what the budget is. You can do something called anchoring, which is if you already know your rate, you anchor and you say, this is my price, this is my quote. And if you don't want to pay me this, I'll do less time, or I'll do this or that. So it's not just about taking whatever is given to you. It's about knowing your value and your worth and being able to say, hey, let's work on this together. So I think you have to negotiate and hustle as an independent contractor, like Rick said, because we don't have a performer stand-up union that will do it for us.
Mhm.
When also we don't talk a lot to each other about like, oh, how much do you pay? How much do you get for a corporate? Well, how much do you pay? You know, that's always been one of the things that I wanted in having a comedy club, was a place where comics would get together and say, you know, I haven't gotten my check from that guy in 2 weeks. Have you had a problem with him?
Right.
You know, comics really need to be able to talk to each other about that kind of stuff that we don't want to talk to bookers and audience about.
I 100% agree, because comedians can say like they'll get on stage and they'll talk about the nastiest stuff. They'll talk about the most personal stuff, the most embarrassing stuff, but then they don't want to really talk about money. And it's still kind of this taboo for all of us. Like, you know, how much did this person pay you, or how much did that person pay you? And I think it's really important because it puts the power back in our hands to be able to say, oh, this is what I got for this Netflix special, or this is what I got for this corporate gig, or this comedy club, you know, doesn't pay people. You know, there's this. I can't say the comedy club, but it's not the Comedy Studio, and I can't say the name of the comedian because he's relatively famous now. But there was a comedy club who refused to pay the opener, and the opener was like, but I worked all weekend for you. And then the comedy club owner was like, well, go get it from the headliner. So this opener had to beg the headliner to pay him. And as soon as I heard that story, I'm like, I can't work that club because that's really cruel. Yeah. So we have to be able to talk about money without making it like, oh, that person's a jerk. We have to just be like, oh, let's get paid. Let's get paid fairly. Yeah. And I think the same goes for comics too. Like if someone says submit an invoice, don't be a weirdo and be like, oh man, I don't do capitalism. It's an invoice. Just send it, you know?
I appreciate the
comics have to kind of rise to the occasion too. We're not.
Well, and it would be nice to get contracts. You know, we have standard contracts. I know a children's performer, and if you're a school and you want to hire the guy, it's a 50% deposit. You sign the contract. The contract has listed, you know, what he needs for sound equipment. It needs to be indoors. You know, all that sort of stuff. And if it's canceled by act of God, you get half the deposit back.
The indoor part.
Rick, that's no joke, because a lot of my gigs that were canceled in March, I was able to keep the deposit because I had a deposit. And some not people that I was working with, some comics, they were having a difficult time because there's a clause, like there's the, you know, act of God clause or force majeure. And so they're saying, we couldn't have predicted coronavirus, so we can't pay you because this is an unforeseen circumstance. So we won't be able to make good on that. So, you know, contracts are a big deal, and getting a 50% deposit is important too, because they could just cancel the gig up to the last minute and you've said no to other things, or you've said no to other gigs that might pay you. And sometimes if they can't give you what you want, you have to be able to walk away, which is why there's no shame in the game of having a day job or doing something else that you're doing freelancing, because it doesn't make you less of a comedian. It doesn't make you hacky or anything like that. It just makes you be able to walk away from a bad situation. So it's about empowering yourself to be like, I'm not going to do this gig because they're treating me poorly, because I got some money coming in from something else. And to be able to say, I will only work with people who are fair and not racist and not, kind of cheating me out of money. So when comics talk about, oh, I'm going to go full time, I'm like, great, but make sure you know what you will do and what you won't do.
Yeah, and how to do your taxes. One of the things I think as comics, we get into that thing of what am I worth and all that, and having the ability to say no is huge. There's also the aspect that we see it as an approval thing. If somebody says, I want you to work a weekend, we're like, I don't want to talk about money. It's like, I'm so thankful that you're approving me that, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to mess it up by asking for details.
Yeah,
It's
some
just sort of
comics
like,
are.
yes, sir, thank you.
Some comics are scared to be like, how much
that's
does
a really
it pay?
good point too, because sometimes it's not just about the money; it's about other things. I worked this is standard. Like an opener in most clubs gets $50 or whatever. And so when I was like starting off trying to get into the rotation at the clubs in the Bay Area, I knew that I wasn't going to get paid a lot. But one of those opening experiences, I opened for Greg Proops. And then when I rose up to feature, he was like, I want you to work New Year's Eve with me. And then your money doubles on New Year's Eve. And then Proops and I have stayed in touch. And anytime Proops works a major club, he tells the booker, I want women to open for me. And if I can't have an all women opening lineup, people of color. And you know how Proops is. He's like, let's go crazy and let's get a Latinx person or Black person involved, And so meeting Proops was worth more than the $50 that I got as an opener, because I learned so much from him. He's been such an ally for me. So you can't always monetize what's going to happen in your career from one weekend, right?
Yeah.
You get any good Star Wars stories from Greg Proops? He was in episode 1, I think.
Really?
Yeah, he's done a lot
He was
of
the
voiceover.
two-headed announcer, at the
Oh,
pod.
yeah.
He's done,
Pod race.
Proops, speaking of Green Room, everyone knows this, but Greg Proops is the best off-the-cuff storyteller in the entire universe. Real or imagined universe, whatever universe you call. I have spent a lot of time with him in the green room, and he speaks so eloquently about everything from the integration of baseball to, kind of coming up. And he used to do Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. And, he would walk in this beautiful suit with a pocket square and his hair done. And, and they would try to, make fun of him. And he would just eviscerate everyone with like 2 words. And learning from how he has handled his career, just stories about roles he's done or places he's traveled to, or I think he experienced turbulence on this flight, and I think a flight attendant was like, can you do some improv for them?
Wow.
And he literally got on that thing, and he was like,
that's so cool.
Yeah, he kind of, and I think Robin Williams would do this too. Like whenever people were like, hey, Robin, like people are suffering, can you do something? He would. So he tells the most amazing stories about things that he's done, and also places he's bombed. Like he's just himself, and he's like, oh, they didn't like my political stuff, those cats and kittens, or however he talks. So these are amazing stories that you can't really do on Zoom now.
Sure. You ever work with Greg Proops, Rick? You
I
guys
have
must
not.
have been.
No, I talked to a little bit in Montreal. He did a couple panels and stuff, but nothing more than a casual hello.
So you didn't get his eloquency.
I did not get eloquence, no.
When I interned at Improv Boston, he was one of the people coming in for the Improv Boston's comedy festival.
Was he nice to you?
I didn't get to meet him, but I got to see his writer. His writer was actually pretty simple. There was like another person who came in who was like way more complex, that needed like a specific bottle of wine, specific types of flowers in the green room, and Greg's was just like, whatever you got.
Yeah, a bowl of brown M&Ms with one red one hidden in there.
The issue now is that if something isn't to your liking, that was in your rider, it's your own fault. You can go to your kitchen and get it yourself. So now, don't blame the club. It's on you.
Here's an inside baseball story. We got a writer from Gary Goldman, and he requested a specific type of electrolyte water. I had to go to like 4 different stores to find it, and I was like, I haven't tried it yet, but I gotta wonder what's so special about this electrolyte. It's got to be something very special. It had to be this
which
specific.
brand was it? Now I want it.
I don't even remember, but it was. I'm lost, but it was hard for me to find it, and I knew that it must be very special then.
Where did you find it?
I've never really worked.
I had to go to
with
like 3 different Whole Foods.
Yeah, I've never really worked with anyone with a complex rider. One of my friends was opening for Dave Chappelle when he comes through San Francisco, and he ends up like just last minute saying, I'm going to be there. And then he sells out 7 shows and then he performs for 3 hours on each show. So I was waiting for my friend to finish because she went back into the green room and she came out and she said, oh no, Chappelle said, if you're a comic, you can come in. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. So I go in and there is a spread of food. There is so much stuff. There's like packs of gum, there's a fruit plate, there's hummus, there's different bottles of alcohol. Like it's a party in there. And so I'm trying to be very background. I'm trying to be like Thing. I'm trying to be the brick wall. And he goes, nice to meet you. And I go, nice to meet you too. And he goes, do you want anything to drink? And I was like, oh no, thank you. Cause I didn't want to take the stuff he had. He goes, do you want anything to eat? And I was like, oh no, I'm good. And he goes, you want any crack? Cause we got that too.
It's a perfect spread.
And it just put me at ease, which, I know everyone has like their own opinions of different comics or whatever, but I think the comics that I've seen who have come through hardship or through really going through the circuit, they really want to be generous. They want to be generous with their food or their drink or their crack or, whatever it is. And so I'm always surprised when comedians who are internationally known or have done really well have that spirit of generosity when they're like, oh, I used to know what that feeling was like.
And what a gem he must be. I'm sure everywhere he goes, he runs into comics who, like you, are like, kind of I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe petrified that you're like around fucking Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And that he just so easily was able to put you at ease.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be that person who's like, oh, I mooched off all the food in the green room, even though I was hungry. Yeah. But yeah, and so I was trying to be on my best behavior, and he probably understood that, and he was like, we can just be cool, which is again, it's the equalizing feeling that you sometimes get in the green room. And of course, there's some people who you want to give them their space and leave them alone, and they're working. But most of the time, we all know what it's like.
Yeah.
Rick demands an empty green room before the show. He needs to be in there, do his stretches, do his vocal warm-ups.
Gets a whole spread for himself.
The green room can be full. It's the audience that's always in. And that's why I always get a little irritated with like when stuff like this happens with Ellen or Leno or something, because there's as comics generally they're all really, really good, no matter how big they are. I've opened for Leno, I've opened for Ellen. They're all relatively nice people, and when stuff comes out in the press about like, oh, they're real assholes, I go, well, when you're that big, everyone's looking to take a shot at you, and you can't always be nice, so I cut when people get this kind of negative publicity, I always cut them a little bit of slack when they're a comic. I sort of a feeling of you're not a person, you're a comedian. We're in this together.
But to be fair, you're not Ellen's employee. You're her coworker at that point. Like there's no shit, she treated you nice. You guys are working together. You weren't working under her.
Well, I was opening for her at a college, so it's not like,
But still, you weren't like an intern on her show, where maybe the power balance was a little different. But we don't have to relitigate Ellen.
Leno's a good example in that Leno had this rider. Now we're talking back in the 80s when Kushnick was still his manager, but his rider had this kind of water in the green room and this thing, and there'll be a person there to look after it. And of course, he's Leno. When he gets there, he couldn't give a shit about any of that stuff. Huh. It was all the manager saying, "Oh, we have to make sure we take care, and that the room knows how important my client is, and all that sort of stuff." And he's just like, "Oh, the hell with it here."
Hey, they left all this water here. Anybody want one?
Yeah, you want to take some water with you?
We are coming up on the end of the show. We like to end the show by everyone going around the horn and giving a comedy recommendation, something they've enjoyed in the realm of comedy recently, and then also just shouting out a local business that might be hurting from the pandemic, if you have one in mind. So Rick, why don't you kick us off? What do you got? I always love
Okay,
hearing
well,
your comedy Rex.
For business, I'm going to go with us.
Yeah.
We are basically we're launching an online comedy club because we don't know when we're going to be able to get back here, and we're very, very excited about that. And if you want to support our business, buy a $10 ticket,
Yeah.
even if you don't come. It's a way of each ticket is going to really, really help us in getting through this. So support us. And for comedy thing, the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York, is a whole museum of comedy, and they're doing their festival now, which are 20-minute, half-hour interviews of comedians interviewing comedians. So, like Harrison Greenbaum is interviewing Sam Jay. They're both former studio people, so that's why I saw them first. But yeah, Leno, like all these comedians, there's about 36 different little 20-minute to 30-minute interviews of comedians talking to other comedians about comedy. It's all free. They ask for a donation, but it's all free there if you like, and it's really, really interesting. Just go to the National Comedy Center .com, and it's a real terrific, entertaining resource.
Oh, very nice. I would like to recommend the movie An American Pickle on HBO with Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen. It's a good time. It's like a modern fairy tale. It was a very warm-hearted movie, I thought. None of his usual antics in there. It was pretty tame. Not that I don't like his antics, but it's nice to see he has range. And then for my local business, I would like to recommend the grocery store Harris Teeter, which is right down the street from me in Bethesda, which is where I live currently. It's a great store. Harris Teeter, good prices, lots of savings. How about you, Dhaya? What would you like to recommend?
I'm gonna do this question wrong, I think.
No,
because
there's no wrong.
I have one shout out to Rick. Because I know what a lot of what he does is so much fun. The other day, when like a few weeks ago, when John Lewis died, I called one of my comedy friends and I was like, "Oh my God, John Lewis died!" And she's a Black woman, and she goes, "Oh God, he died? I loved his comedy." And I was like, "What?" And she thought I meant Richard Lewis died. So I know that Rick keeps track of everyone who's died. So I tell that story because I don't want the Comedy Studio to die. I don't want that to be in Rick's act. So I think I'm going to also plug the Comedy Studio, where you can see. I think Mike Kaplan is going to come by soon, and
you.
Yes, I'm going to be there. So it should tell you something that I'm sitting in California and having weirdo nostalgic thoughts about a club in Somerville. So I think that's a really great idea. Buy a ticket, and even if you don't show up, it's fine. Like, you just buy the ticket, support the business, give some money. In terms of the comedy recommendation, I would say, any of these comedians you haven't heard of at the Comedy Studio, you will likely hear of them in 2 years. So all of those people you should see.
Oh, that was very nice.
That was very nice.
All right, Eli, take us home.
For my comedy recommendation, I finally watched Sam Jay's new special on Netflix, 3 in the morning, and it's really good. I liked it a lot. And then I'd also recommend a lot of studio comics have started Twitch channels because they've gotten to the point in the quarantine where they've bought an Xbox. Which a lot of people are coming around to. So I'd recommend our friend Ryan Shea's Twitch channel, Nosebreaker666.
Okay. Is that a local business? Who's to say?
Hey.
Twitch is a business, and everything is local now. Dhaya, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a treat. I learned so much from you, and what a great conversation. Where can our listeners find you if they want to learn more about you?
So at Dhaya Live, I'm on Twitter, and whenever I say anything remotely controversial, people are so up in arms. But that's why I love Twitter. So find me on Twitter. I am doing a new talk show called Broadish with some comedians from New York and all over the country, and it's all women. And it's sponsored by the West Side Comedy Club in New York. So now I get to work all over the country. So look for that. And I was just a correspondent for a fake DNC thing. So you can
Oh,
find me on
cool.
YouTube. Follow me at Dhaya Live. If you want to Venmo me, that's at Dhaya Live also. So
Awesome.
I'll take donations, and then I can buy a drink next time at the comedy studio.
Yes. Well, thank you once again for joining us. This was great. Please stay safe with the firestorms and the rolling blackouts
And the wrath
howling
of
winds.
God.
God, yeah, I'm gonna need some kind of superhero to save
Yeah.
us all.
The Thing.
The thing stands in front of you.
Yeah, I love all of you. I love the comedy studio. I miss you so much, and I'm looking forward to the show. So
Likewise.
Thank you for
We'll see you Friday.
We'll
Thanks
see
so
you there.
much.
Friday.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Take care.
All right,
Thanks for
bye.
listening. Bye.
Ooh, pizza's here.